No, competition in and of itself is not really a bad thing. I mean, it usually means that, we're constantly on our toes. We're looking at what other folks are doing, and we're just, it's just engaged in, a healthy battle, if you want to call it a battle. But sometimes, I think competition sometimes can bring out the worst in our character, the worst in, who we are, the worst in what we really think our goal is. And I think really it's really in poor taste and really a shame when you actually have, two individuals that are constantly going back at each other over the fact that one thinks that the other is trying to imitate them, and pretty much, and I think really in my opinion, I think it's all really ego driven. Now, one thing about it is that, again, I pretty much take a look at a lot of videos and everything, and for the most part, and I take a look at a lot of, videos where, there may be some sort of battle or some sort of quote unquote altercation, if you will, if you want to call it that. But one thing about it is that, battles and, altercations and fights, if you want to call it that, is all a part of our human existence. We live with it, we deal with it, we engage in it. But at some point in time, we learn, to move on and really don't let the issue that we fought about really become internal, where it becomes where it's a long drawn out process. But see, I've actually come to the conclusion after looking at two videos, of, well, not two videos per se, but just multiple videos by two different people here on YouTube. I'm trying to figure out how long is this battle actually going to go on. One thing that I've actually understood and really has a proven fact about the black community, at least in this day and age, is that technology is really driving us crazy. I've actually, had to sit there and actually sit in on a lot of YouTube videos where, different people would sit there and try to argue their point across to the point where they would become childish in a sense, where they would result to name calling, fault finding, lying, and all this other type of stuff. And see, that type of activity looks like it's going on within, YouTube. Well, Tommy Sotomayor and the Advice Show. And the funny thing about it is that normally I would not even be interested in something like this because, first of all, it doesn't involve me, but I think that it's kind of entertaining, but again, it's very sad at what YouTube is what it is doing to our black community, and mainly what it's doing in this case to our black men. It's a shame when you actually tune in, and you have to understand is that YouTube is actually used by everybody. That means that old folks, young folks, children that's trying to find their way, children that's trying to really figure out what the world is all about. They're actually turning in and listening to people that are bickering back and forth over something that really isn't worth anything. I mean, again, I sat there and listened to video after video after video after video of Tommy Sotomayor, and then I listened to videos, video after, the Advice Show, pretty much on, who is imitating who, this is a misunderstanding, this, that, and the other. See, I actually come to this conclusion. There is really no need to really continue to fight with idiots. And I'm not calling either one of you idiots, but if you all want to take that I am, then you know what? That's totally on you. I'm just only voicing my opinion. But see, one thing that I understand is that the more that you argue with an idiot, the more idiotic you become. And see, I've learned the concept that sometimes there are some things that's just worth just letting go. Because I've always under the specific belief that people who really know you and really know your cause and what you're all about, they'll know the truth. It doesn't matter what somebody else may say about you, what other person may actually come and say, okay, I found this new evidence, this, that, and the other. All of that shows that the other person who's doing all this is actually being taken down. And they're actually showing themselves to be weak. And see, one thing about it is that we have a lot of weak individuals that are really trying to portray themselves and boast their rep by actually defining themselves who they are based on the number of people that listens to them. And one thing about it is that that's a pure shame when you're actually living in a society that already thinks of the black community as a joke. And see, one thing about it, the more that you sit there and actually bicker back and forth with this nonsense about this, that, and the other, things that really does not really amount to much, you're not really even helping yourself if you really think so. When you actually have to sit there and defend yourself time and time again, that lets me know one thing. First of all, you're not confident in yourself. Because one thing about it, confidence is not something that's spoken, it's shown. And see, one thing about it is that, in my opinion, you don't show confidence when you're actually going back and forth delivering who has the bigger jokes. And see, that is a common thing between you two guys. And like I said, I'm not trying to pick either side. And the reason why this actually inspired me to do this video is based on the last video that you did, the Advice Show, regarding, some misconceptions and some other stuff that you wanted to clear the air with. regarding, sick obsessions and serial stalking and all this other type of stuff. I sat there and I listened through the video in its entirety. I actually listened to it twice. And basically, my assessment on that is that pretty much I would say that you did a very good job in actually explaining yourself. But see, my thing about this is, why do you have to keep explaining yourself to something if you know that you're confident in it? See, one thing about it is that, again, confidence is actually shown. You don't really speak that much about it because people know what your cause is. They know what you're all about. And see, I hate the type of people that actually try to bring back and forth garbage between you two to try to keep some sort of beef going. That's the main reason why we actually have black folks that really cannot get along and really, can't squash the beef. Because you have little ticks and all these other type of things, little enemies, little backbiters and tail bearing going on between, folks taking insults back and forth. Oh, he said this to you and he did all this other type of stuff. Look, children really do stuff like that, and it's really a shame that you actually have adults that really behave that way. And all you're doing is teaching the younger generation that listen to this trash that it's okay to engage in fight fault, finding fault, calling names and all this other type of stuff. And like I say, what point is it going to prove? When you go back and really deliver an insult or really trade in an insult for an insult, do you feel a lot better about yourself? Like I say, it's kind of funny because, again, we in the black community, we get a kick out of really being insulting to one another. And like I say, when you have a beef like this, I haven't really seen a beef like this out of any other race other than the black folk. I have not seen any race like this that goes back and forth and deliver insults after insult. And even if they do, the squash or the battle doesn't even last that long because they really realize and come to the notion that this is really childish. I have a lot of other things that I can be doing with my day. I have 24 hours to do all this other stuff, but we sit there and let this issue take over all of how we think, how we act, how we interact with people, and it's like, enough of it already. Like I say, Tommy is going to be Tommy. He's going to do what he's got to do because, like I say, he really, he feels that in a way that he's superior, at least in my opinion. At least, and I think there was a video that he did with to Avenue Rants or whatever, where he said that he was. Like I said, it was a long video. Like I said, there was a lot of things that was said, but if he didn't say that, he brought across the notion that he really is better because of the type of people that he associates himself with. And like I say, when you listen to how people talk and you listen and see what's really going on, they reveal themselves basically on what they think about themselves as they relate to you. And if you're dealing with someone who thinks that they are so superior to you, you know what? Let them have it. That's my opinion. Let them have whatever superiority or whatever glory they think they have. Because one thing about it is that sooner or later, people are going to get tired of that. See, one thing about it is that this technology thing and this internet, this Facebook and everything like this, is becoming to be a bit much for black folk. We live through the computer screen. I think what the best alternative is just to step back and take a deep breath and really ask yourself what's really important. Because really, one thing about it is that all this going back and forth, all you're doing is showing that, okay, I want to make sure that I have the last laugh. And really, it's not really that worth it. When I go across somebody who's actually just hell bent on really having the last word, I let them have it. Because eventually, when they realize that I'm no longer interested in the conversation, I've stepped away, I'm no longer interested in talking to you or entertaining you, they're going to eventually shut their mouths. Because the more they talk, the more they're going to realize how childish they are. And see, my thing to you, Mr. Advice Show, is that don't let nobody bring you down to that level. I don't care what it is. People are going to talk about you. I'm pretty sure that Tommy Sotomayor is not the first person to call you names and everything like that. You're still standing. You're still breathing. So guess what? That means that apparently, what they say doesn't matter. You do you. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you take some stuff and some of his techniques and stuff and benchmark it to make, yourself work or whatever. Fine, that's fine. But in the end, like I say, I don't see anything wrong with giving him the proper props to say, okay, you know what? Thank you for, for allowing me to kind of imitate you. And I'm not saying you're doing that, but just thank you, for just letting me benchmark some of your techniques because I see that it actually worked for you. So I want to see it work for me. I think there was a video that you two did at the beginning of the year, and this year just came in, but it was earlier in the year, I think it was January or something, where you two were attempting to squash the beef. So I'm trying to figure out what happened between that time and now. You want to know what? I can tell you what happened. People going back and forth trying to make up things that really is not there. And see, smart people are really one of the main ones that will actually be able to identify that and stop it right in its tracks. But see, one thing about it is that you want to know the reason why we're not actually behaving that way? It's because we're not adopting and trying to keep those things strong in our mentality. You sit there and you entertain foolishness. The minute somebody tells you something or brings something to your Facebook page, you got to go and try to save a hoe or whatever the case may be to try to defend your honor as if this is a life and death situation. I don't look at this thing, it's not that serious. If anything, I would pull up a bowl of popcorn, sit up and look at the computer screen and see just how far this foolishness is going to go. And I mean, it's so funny. You deliver, what, an hour tirade, 30-minute tirades and stuff trying to explain yourself and everything. And like I say, your subscribers are all, anybody, like I said, who knows what you're all about and knows your true heart will already know what the truth is, vice of what somebody else is trying to say. See, my thing about it is that we've become so obsessed with YouTube, we're trying to win subscribers. And my motto is that it doesn't really matter to me about a subscriber because subscribers are just like the weather. They change, their mood changes and everything else. The minute that you say something they like, they'll subscribe to you. The minute you say something that goes against their reality or their way of thinking, they want to unsubscribe. You know, to hell with them. You have to be true to you. That's what this whole thing is about. The fact about it is that you're putting on these personas and everything else trying to be like something else when you need to be yourselves. And that's for both Tommy Sotomayor and The Advice Show. Because basically, all I see every time I turn around, I look on my YouTube thread, and I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to be looking at today? What type of childish tactic is going to be used today? And I mean, like I say, and to be honest, the only mature person, if you want to call it the mature person, that's really having a lot to say that really makes sense, is you, in my opinion, depending on the situation at hand. But I mean, like I say, you know, aside from all of that, you know, when is this type of stuff is going to stop? We need to really stop trying to sit there and trying to put on a show for the world because a society already looks at you as a joke. You don't see no white folks or whatever going back and forth like this, calling people names and everything like that just because, you know, they got a little bit of fame or whatever on YouTube. With black folks, there's just some things that you really cannot give black folks for the most part. Most of them. Because when you give it to them, they think that they're the world and all. And that's power. And like I say, and depending on what it is that you're complimenting them on, that's giving them their props. Because for some reason, they figure that when you give them those two things, that you know what, you can't touch me, I'm better than you, and this, that, and the other. That's why anytime when I come across somebody who's doing a good job, who I really think that is really, you know, exceeding or whatever at what they do, you know, I give them, you know, I compliment them, but I don't go overboard. I keep it kind of as neutral as possible, as low down as possible, so they won't get the big head. Because as we see here, somebody done went along somewhere and I told this man that, you know, he is so awesome and everything else. Now it's getting to the point where he's a monster. But see, one thing about it, to you, Advice Show, you don't have to fall into that way of thinking as well. Because one thing about it is that when I listened to that video, you weren't insulting. You said whatever you had to say, and you were calm about it. That's how you sit there and you feed ignorance. You don't sit there and actually go and, you know, back and forth with the insults or whatever. And you don't really get emotional about it. That's a good thing, too. Because, see, one thing about it, we as black folks, we thrive on emotion and drama. But, see, one thing about it is that I'm going to keep it short and kind of wind this down, but just kind of take, you know, just kind of think about a little bit of what I said and really understand that you do you. You still continue to do your videos and everything like that. Keep them coming. I listen to Tommy videos and some of the stuff. I don't listen to every video of his, but some of the ones that I think that really delivers a positive message when he's not really bashing black women and everything else, I'll lend an ear to it. But see, one thing about it is that there's a common theme these days between black folks, mainly black men here on YouTube, is the fact that they will do anything they can, almost short of selling their soul just for the fact of getting a little bit of fame. You talk to so-and-so tweeted you, so what? If you got to base yourself based on who you associate with in your social circle, then guess what? What you're trying to pump up or trying to work at is really not worth having because you're selling yourself in the process. When are we going to get to meet the real you? So I'm just going to keep it short and sweet like that and, you know, be blessed. And as always, don't let nobody take you down. You don't have to go back and forth with people like that. You're better than that. That's all I have to say.